The evening glowed with golden light as laughter spilled through the vineyard's glass-walled dining hall. Eleanor Matthews lifted her crystal glass high, her eyes shimmering with pride. "To family," she said, her voice warm and sure. Daniel smiled at her, a little too tightly, before his phone buzzed against the tablecloth. He excused himself, stepping out onto the terrace, the grin fading the moment the door shut. Ellie watched him through the reflection of the window, her smile hardening. Who was he talking to at this hour? And why did his tone sound like fear? The wind carried a single phrase from his whisper. "It's handled. No one suspects." Her heart froze. When Daniel returned, he kissed Grace's temple as though nothing had happened. The perfect husband once more. But Ellie's world had shifted. Later that night, when she passed Daniel's open laptop in the office, a file flickered on screen. "Transfer records confidential." Her hand trembled as she clicked. The next morning, the vineyard buzzed with routine, but Ellie couldn't unsee what she'd read. Daniel's cheerful voice floated through the hallway as he spoke to the workers, pretending nothing had changed. Grace hummed softly in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, her happiness a cruel mirror to the storm brewing inside her mother. Ellie slipped into the office again, double-checking the folder. It was gone. The entire file had vanished. Her pulse quickened. "Looking for something?" Daniel's voice came from behind her, soft but laced with something darker. She turned, smiling faintly. "Just papers," she lied. His eyes met hers, unreadable. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them, an unspoken challenge. Then Grace called from the kitchen, breaking the moment. But Ellie knew it. Daniel knew she'd seen it. Later that afternoon, Ellie sought Maggie's help under the pretense of bookkeeping. In the vineyard office, Maggie flipped through balance sheets, her brow furrowing. "Ellie, these withdrawals, they don't make sense." Ellie's stomach twisted. Hearing it aloud made it real. "Could it be Daniel's doing?" Maggie asked, voice hushed but urgent. Ellie hesitated. "I need proof before I accuse him." Outside, Daniel walked past the window, laughing into his phone, the image of confidence. Maggie lowered her voice. "Ellie, be careful. If he's hiding something, you might not like what you find." That night, the vineyard lights shimmered against the rain-slick vines. Ellie sat awake, unable to rest, replaying Daniel's expression. Then, faint footsteps echoed outside her door. She peered through the crack, Daniel carrying a folder moving quietly down the hall. Her pulse thundered. She followed at a distance, barefoot, the floorboards creaking softly. He slipped into the cellar, locking the door behind him. Ellie pressed her ear against the cool wood. Inside, she heard muffled voices, more than one. She stepped back into the shadows, heart pounding with realization. Daniel wasn't working alone. By morning, Ellie's suspicion had hardened into resolve. She called Detective Ryan Pierce, an old friend she hadn't spoken to in years. "Ryan, is Ellie. I need your help, and your discretion." There was a pause on the line. Surprise, then concern. "Is this about Daniel Carter?" he asked quietly. Ellie froze. "What do you know?" His sigh was soft but heavy. "Let's just say you're not the first to call about him." The vineyard's sunlight streamed through the window, warming Ellie's trembling hands. Her world wasn't just cracked anymore. It was breaking. The next evening, the air hung thick with the scent of fermenting grapes. Ellie descended the cellar steps slowly, her flashlight beam slicing through dust and darkness. She had waited until Daniel and Grace went into town. "If I'm wrong, let me be wrong," she whispered. But she wasn't wrong. Rows of oak barrels gleamed faintly, and beyond them, a metal cabinet she'd never seen before. She knelt, pulling it open, revealing thick folders labeled "Shipments" and "Private Clients." Each document bore Daniel's signature. Her stomach churned. Footsteps echoed faintly above. Someone else was home. She switched off her light and held her breath. The sound moved closer, deliberate and slow. The next day, Ellie confided in Maggie. "There's something in that cellar," she said, voice shaking. Maggie adjusted her glasses, skeptical but curious. "You think Daniel's hiding evidence?" "I don't think," Ellie murmured. "I know." They descended together that evening, flashlights piercing the gloom. Maggie scanned the documents, her jaw tightening. "Ellie, this isn't just fraud. These shipment numbers. They match an ongoing investigation." Ellie's heart stopped. "What kind of investigation?" Maggie looked up slowly. "Smuggling. And not just wine." When Ellie returned upstairs, Grace waited at the kitchen island, sipping tea. "Mom, Daniel said you were in the cellar again." Ellie froze, her mind racing. "Just checking the stock," she replied. Grace frowned. "You don't trust him, do you?" Ellie's silence said more than words. Grace slammed her cup down. "You've never liked him." "No," Ellie said softly. "I've just started to see him clearly." Grace's voice broke. "He's my husband, Mom. You're trying to ruin us." Ellie's heart ached, but she didn't speak again. She simply turned away, her reflection in the glass door showing tears she refused to let fall. That night, unable to rest, Ellie sat by the fireplace, reviewing copies of Daniel's files. A knock startled her. She opened the door to find Detective Ryan Pierce standing there, rain dripping from his coat. "You called, Ellie?" His eyes were kind but sharp. "I didn't think you'd come so soon," she said. "I've been investigating Daniel Carter for months," he replied quietly. "You're not the only one he's betrayed." He glanced toward the vineyard beyond the window. "We think your shipments are being used to move stolen artifacts." Ellie's blood ran cold. "And Grace?" she whispered. Ryan hesitated. "She might be in danger if she knows too much." Later, Ellie led Ryan to the cellar, the echo of their footsteps bouncing off stone walls. She showed him the cabinet and the empty folders. "He cleared it out," she said bitterly. Ryan crouched, examining faint scuff marks on the floor. "Not cleared out. Moved." He pressed his palm against the wall. Hollow, a hidden compartment. With a push, a wooden panel slid open, revealing a narrow passage lined with boxes. Inside were crates sealed in black plastic, stamped with foreign customs marks. Ryan peeled one open. Inside lay not bottles, but antique jewelry and small, wrapped statues. Ellie covered her mouth. "Dear God, he's smuggling history." Above them, faint footsteps echoed. Daniel was home. The morning after Ryan's discovery, Ellie's nerves were steel and glass, strong but ready to shatter. She brewed coffee while Daniel chatted easily with Grace about taking their infant son to the park, pretending everything was ordinary. When he looked up, their eyes met. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Did you sleep well?" he asked smoothly. "Eventually," she replied. Grace laughed, oblivious. The tension crackled beneath the calm. When Daniel leaned close to kiss Grace's cheek, Ellie caught a faint stain on his sleeve. Dried mud, the same hue as the cellar floor. Her blood ran cold. He knew she'd been there. And worse, he'd been there after her. Later that day, Ryan returned to the vineyard under the pretense of inspecting licensing records. Grace answered the door, surprised but polite. "Detective Pierce?" It's been years. The air between them held old warmth and awkward memory. Ryan smiled faintly. "Just routine work." But his eyes scanned the hall, the photographs, the shadows. When Daniel appeared behind her, his demeanor shifted instantly. "Detective," he said coldly. "Is there a problem?" Ryan held his gaze. "Not yet." Ellie stepped in, forcing calm. "He's here about a permit review." Daniel's jaw flexed. "Right. Then let's keep it short." The unspoken hostility was unmistakable. Two men circling the same secret. When Ryan left, Daniel confronted Ellie in the office, door clicking shut like a warning. You brought a detective into my home, he said softly, dangerously. Ellie's hands tightened around her coffee cup. Into my home, she corrected. And he's here because of you. His eyes darkened. You don't understand what you're doing. She met his glare. No, Daniel, I finally do. He leaned in, voice low. Grace can't know. If you love her, you'll stop this. Ellie stared at him, trembling with fury. If I love her, she said, I'll save her from you. For a moment, his mask cracked, the charm gone, only menace remaining. Then he smiled again, falsely smooth. Then I suppose we're enemies now. That evening, Grace found Ellie in tears. Mom, what's happening? Ellie hesitated, torn between truth and protection. Grace, promise me. If something ever feels wrong, you'll come to me. Grace shook her head, confused. You're scaring me. Ellie gripped her daughter's hands. There are things you don't see about Daniel. Grace pulled back sharply. You're accusing my husband of what? Working too hard? Her voice trembled with anger and fear. He's been my rock, Mom. You just can't stand that someone else takes care of me now. Ellie's heart shattered quietly. I only ever wanted you safe. Grace turned away, her reflection blurring in the window, tears shining like broken glass. Late that night, Daniel sat alone in his car near the edge of the vineyard, phone pressed to his ear. She's getting too close, he said quietly. Then handle it. A distorted voice replied. You know what's at stake. Inside the house, Ellie couldn't sleep. She walked the hallway, every floorboard creak echoing like a heartbeat. A faint light glowed from Daniel and Grace's office. She approached, the door slightly ajar. Inside, Daniel's laptop screen displayed a hidden folder titled Pierce. Ellie's hand covered her mouth. Files scrolled. Surveillance photos of Ryan, timestamps, and police report leaks. Daniel wasn't just smuggling. He was watching the man investigating him, and possibly planning something worse. The night storm rolled in like a warning. Wind howled through the vineyard rows as Ellie hurried to meet Maggie by the cellar. The key trembled in her hand. If we find nothing, we forget this ever happened, she said. And if we do? Maggie asked, her voice low. Ellie took a deep breath and unlocked the door. The air inside was colder than before. Still, watchful. They followed the narrow passage Ryan had discovered until Ellie's flashlight caught something new. A faint outline of a panel on the far wall. She pressed her palm against it. It clicked. Slowly, a hidden door swung open, revealing a smaller room lined with crates. Inside them, hundreds of bottles, each with false labels. But beneath one crate lay something else. A handgun, polished, ready. Maggie whispered, What the hell has he done? Ellie's hands shook as she held the gun under the flashlight. He's been hiding more than money, she whispered. Maggie snapped photos with her phone. We need to tell Ryan. But before they could move, footsteps echoed above. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Ellie extinguished the light. The cellar plunged into darkness. Dust drifted from the ceiling as a door creaked somewhere overhead. The footsteps paused, then faded away. Maggie's whisper trembled. You think it's him? Ellie swallowed hard. Who else would it be at this hour? They exchanged a look of silent dread, knowing that whoever was up there, Daniel or not, had been watching. By dawn, Ellie couldn't contain the secret anymore. She called Ryan, voice trembling. We found something. Guns, fake labels, shipments. Within an hour, his unmarked car pulled up the dirt road. He stepped out, eyes serious. Show me. In the cellar, Ryan examined the crates, nodding grimly. This matches what we seized in Portland last week. He's not just smuggling artifacts, Ellie. He's laundering through counterfeit wine. Ellie stared at him, horrified. My vineyard. He looked up gently. He's using it as cover. For a moment, she looked around the room. Every bottle, Every barrel. All of it poisoned by deceit. Then we burn it all, she whispered. Grace's laughter drifted down the hall that afternoon as Ellie returned upstairs. For a fleeting second, she almost envied her daughter's innocence. But the peace shattered when Daniel entered the kitchen. Phone pressed to his ear, his voice sharp. I told you not to call me here. He froze when he saw Ellie. Slowly, he hung up. You've been busy, he said calmly. Ellie met his gaze. You should have buried your secrets deeper. His jaw clenched. You think you're saving her? You're ruining her. No, she said, stepping closer. You ruined her the moment you stepped into our lives. His lips curved into a dark smile. You shouldn't have gone into the cellar. That night, Ellie couldn't rest. Ryan's words echoed in her mind. He's dangerous, Ellie. She walked through the vineyard's dark rows, moonlight spilling silver over the vines. In her hand, the gun she'd found. When she reached the cellar door, it was already open. A faint light flickered below. She descended slowly, weapon raised. Inside the hidden room, the crates were gone. The walls were bare except for a single item left on the floor. A photo of her late husband shaking hands with Daniel, dated 2 years before Grace's wedding. Her breath caught. It wasn't Daniel who found the smuggling ring. He inherited it. My God, she whispered. You knew. Behind her, a voice answered quietly. Now you do too. The morning sun rose cold and indifferent. Ellie sat at the kitchen table, the old photograph between her trembling hands. Her husband and Daniel, smiling like allies, conspirators from 2 worlds colliding. When Grace entered, Ellie hid the photo beneath a folder. You've been distant, Grace said softly. Did something happen between you and Daniel? Ellie looked up, weary. Grace, there are things you don't see. Grace shook her head, tears already forming. No, there are things you won't see. You're trying to destroy us. Ellie's voice broke, raw and pleading. He's not who you think he is. But Grace was already gone, slamming the door behind her. The vineyard outside shimmered in the light. Beautiful, poisoned, indifferent. Daniel found Grace crying in the garden. What happened? He asked, feigning concern. She said horrible things. Grace sobbed. That you're dangerous. Daniel wrapped his arms around her, voice smooth as silk. Your mother's lonely, Grace. She's making things up because she can't control us anymore. She looked up at him, searching for truth. Then tell me you didn't lie to me, she whispered. He hesitated, just long enough. Of course not, he said finally, smiling. But his eyes flicked toward the house, where Ellie watched from an upstairs window. Grace turned away, clinging to him, blind to the calculation behind his comforting touch. By afternoon, Maggie arrived, urgency in her voice. Ryan found something, Daniel's partner's name. Ellie's breath caught. Who? A man your husband once did business with, Maggie said grimly. It's been running in the family for years. Ellie sank into a chair, horror settling over her like ash. So Daniel didn't start it. He's finishing it. Maggie nodded. And he's tying up loose ends. Ellie looked up sharply. Meaning? Maggie's voice faltered. Meaning he's making sure no one talks. Silence fell heavy as thunder. In the distance, an engine started, Daniel's car leaving the driveway. That evening, Grace confronted Ellie again, this time trembling with fury. Daniel told me everything, she said. You went to the police. You're trying to destroy him. Ellie's breath shook. I'm trying to save you. Grace stepped closer, eyes blazing. From what? The man who loves me. Ellie reached for her hand. Desperate. From what he's capable of. Grace pulled away. He's capable of loving me more than you ever have. The words cut deeper than any knife. Ellie's eyes filled with tears. "You'll see, Grace. I just hope it's not too late." Outside, thunder rolled again, as if the heavens themselves understood what she could not yet prove. That night, Ryan's call came. "He's on the move, Ellie," he said. "Daniel's transferring everything. Money, inventory, assets. If we don't act now, he's gone by morning." Ellie hung up, grabbed her coat, and rushed into the rain. She reached the cellar just as headlights flashed across the vines. Daniel stepped out, drenched, expression hard. "You just couldn't let it go," he said. "Neither could you," she replied. The rain lashed around them, their words lost to the storm. "This vineyard was supposed to be a legacy," Ellie cried. "It still is," Daniel said darkly. "Just not yours." He turned to leave, but Ellie blocked his path. "Not this time." Thunder crashed, the sound of a family's final fracture. The storm had not passed. It only settled into silence. That heavy, electric calm before something breaks. Ellie stood in the cellar once more, flashlight trembling in her grip. She knew Ryan was on his way, but she also knew Daniel would not wait quietly. From upstairs, she heard Grace shouting, her voice torn with confusion. "Daniel, what's going on?" His tone came back cold. "Your mother's trying to destroy us." Ellie took a slow breath, her heart pounding. When she stepped into the open hall, Daniel was there, soaked from the rain, eyes wild. "You should have stayed out of it," he hissed. "You should have stayed honest," she replied. For a long, frozen moment, they stood face to face. Love, hate, and fear swirling like smoke between them. Grace stumbled into the cellar behind them, tears streaking her cheeks. "Stop!" she cried. "Both of you!" Daniel turned to her, his face softening instantly. "He's lying to you," Ellie shouted. "Everything in this place, it's a front." Grace shook her head, confused. "I saw the shipments, the accounts," Ellie pleaded. "He's using us, Grace." Daniel stepped closer to his wife, voice calm and venomous. "She's delusional. Look at her. She's obsessed." Grace looked between them, her body trembling. Then she whispered, "Tell me the truth, Daniel. Please." His silence was the answer. Tears fell freely as Grace backed away, her trust dissolving like salt in rainwater. Ryan burst through the cellar door, gun drawn, his voice firm. Daniel Carter stepped away from them. Daniel's laugh was hollow. "You're late, detective." Ryan's eyes flicked to Ellie. "Are you hurt?" "Not yet," she breathed. Daniel raised his hands slightly, mock surrender in his stance. "You have no proof." Ryan reached into his coat and tossed a folder onto the floor. "Bank statements, export records, photos." "I have enough to bury you," he said. Daniel's smirk faded. For the first time, fear cracked through his bravado. Grace stood frozen, realizing everything her mother had said was true. "You lied to me," she whispered. Daniel's eyes softened for a second, regret flickering like dying light, then hardened again. "It was never supposed to touch you." Daniel took a step toward Ryan, eyes locked. "You think you're the hero?" he said quietly. "You don't know what this family really built." His words dripped with bitterness. "Your father-in-law started it. I just finished the work." Ellie's breath caught. "You found his records," she said. "You took his corruption and made it your own." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I tried to save it, to make it right, but your husband left nothing but rot." The silence afterward was unbearable. Grace stared at her mother, horror dawning. "Mom, is that true?" Ellie's voice cracked. "Yes, but I buried that past. He chose to resurrect it." Daniel's eyes softened, almost tender. "Then maybe I'm not the only one with blood on my hands." Ryan moved closer. "It's over, Daniel." But Daniel's gaze flicked to Grace. "You'll regret this," he whispered. Then, in one swift motion, he shoved a stack of crates, the crash echoing through the cellar. Ellie screamed as dust and glass filled the air. Ryan lunged forward, tackling Daniel to the ground. They struggled violently, fists and shouts breaking the silence. Grace fell to her knees, sobbing. Ellie grabbed the fallen gun, Daniel's, but froze, trembling. "Don't!" Ryan shouted, but Daniel twisted free, reaching for her. A deafening bang filled the room. When the smoke cleared, Daniel lay still, blood pooling under his hand. Ellie dropped the weapon, shaking uncontrollably. Grace crawled to him, crying, "Why?" His lips moved once. "For you." Then he was gone. The storm had passed, leaving the vineyard hushed beneath gray skies. Rainwater traced silver veins along the cobblestone paths as Ellie stood near the cellar door, the weight of everything pressing down on her chest. Police lights flickered faintly against the vines. Grace sat wrapped in a blanket on the porch, silent, staring into nothing. Ryan approached quietly. "He's gone," he said gently. Ellie nodded, voice barely a whisper. "I know." The cellar was sealed now. Evidence tagged, history buried. "Grace blames herself," Ryan added softly. "She blames everyone," Ellie murmured. The vineyard stretched before them, acres of beauty tainted by deceit. "It started with lies," she said. "And now it ends with truth." 2 days later, the investigation drew to a close. Ryan delivered the final report to Ellie in her study. "Your husband's records, they match Daniel's," he said quietly. "He didn't start this, he inherited it." Ellie sat perfectly still, her fingers laced. "Then I was living in a lie long before Daniel arrived." Ryan hesitated. "You can still save the vineyard. You just need to tell the truth." Ellie looked out the window at the rows of vines glistening in dawn's light. "The vineyard doesn't need saving," she said finally. "It needs cleansing." Her eyes glimmered with resolve. "Burn the books, Ryan. Let what's dead stay buried." He studied her, a woman stripped to her truth, and nodded. That afternoon, Grace came to the office doorway, hesitant, fragile. "Mom," she said softly. Ellie looked up, unsure whether to rise or brace herself. "I don't know what to feel," Grace continued. "Everything I believed in, it's gone." Ellie approached her slowly. "You loved him because he was kind to you once. That wasn't a mistake." Grace's voice trembled. "I should have listened to you." Ellie shook her head gently. "No, sweetheart. You just loved too deeply." For the first time, Grace let her mother pull her close. They stood in silence, two broken hearts rebuilding in the same quiet breath. "What happens now?" Grace asked. Ellie exhaled softly. "Now we tell the truth, no matter what it costs." Days later, Ellie and Maggie walked to the vineyard together, pruning dead vines that had rotted from neglect. "Wilkmore can't fix the past," Maggie said quietly, trimming a branch, "but we can make sure it doesn't grow back." Ellie smiled faintly. "The roots run deep, but maybe new soil can change what grows." The two women worked in silence, side by side, rebuilding, healing. In the distance, the workers cleared out the old barrels from the cellar, their echoes fading like ghosts finally leaving home. The air smelled of earth and rain. Clean again. Ellie lifted her face toward the pale sky and whispered, "Let it all rest. Let it all rest." Weeks later, the vineyard reopened. Sunlight danced across fresh labels reading Matthew's Legacy Wines, the same name, but cleansed of its curse. Ellie stood on the balcony, overlooking guests tasting the first honest harvest. Grace stood beside her, smiling faintly, strength returning to her eyes. "He'll always be part of it, won't he?" she asked quietly. Ellie nodded. "Ice, but not for what he did, for what we survived." Ryan joined them briefly, removing his hat. "You kept your promise," he said softly. Ellie smiled, eyes glistening. "Truth always finds the light. The The camera pulled wide, capturing the vineyard bathed in sunset, rows of vines stretching endlessly. Alive again.